Hello, Standers. This is Sheila Hollinger with Marriage Revealed Ministries. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to bring a message with a new perspective and understanding, hopefully to open up your understanding, bring some enlightenment, and just make standing a little bit easier with some of the things that we struggle with. So this message that I'm bringing today is something that the Lord just dropped in my spirit and gave me a new perspective. So I'm going to lay out the groundwork a little bit. So temptation can present itself as a doorway. Okay, so we're going to use the doorway analogy as the groundwork. So a doorway can be anything that you walk into that is not the Lord's will and plan for you. The doorway could be adultery, any type of sin, any type of addiction, right? Sometimes these doorways are, I believe, sometimes they're hereditary, right? That's why sometimes you will see a whole family line of people that are in alcohol, right? Those doorways are just there through maybe the sins of the father, and that's a whole nother teaching. But right, we do understand that these doorways can just be there, and you pray against them, that you don't want your children to follow in the footsteps and the paths of other family members. So these are the doorways I'm talking about. And then there's doorways that just appear. I've heard that sometimes someone can become an addict from the very first time they ever open that door and take a drug or take a drink or something. They just become immediately addicted, where someone else can have a drink and it's never a problem for them. That doorway of addiction does not appear. So I hope I'm laying the groundwork about what doorways are, right? So a doorway would be something that in your everyday life, it's just there, always calling you. There's a knocking, right? That's always tempting you. Answer me, open the door, come, let's go do this thing. Let's, whatever it is, let's go drink, let's do drugs, let's have an affair. Or if there is an affair, if there is adultery, that person is on the other side of the door knocking. Okay, so I want to talk about what the standard does when your spouse, we're going to use adultery, when your spouse has that a doorway appear. Sometimes, and this is going to be hard to hear, sometimes you're going to marry someone that's got doorways already. They're already have that in their life where they are prone to being tempted outside the marriage. Maybe that was the lifestyle that was there before, that they were always having these doors with lust or, pornography or whatever, but they maybe hid that door, locked that door, put some curtains over it, and they were like, no, I'm going to pretend this door is not here because I want to get married and I want to be faithful and I don't want to do this right now or ever again, right? But the doorway is still there. And we're going to discuss why that doorway is still there. We have ways in our life that we can hide those doors, but they don't disappear. So they get married. And then all of a sudden that door, the curtains draw back, or the knocking starts real faint, and they're being drawn toward that doorway again of their old lifestyle, their old habits, their old patterns, okay? Or that doorway just appears. They've never had a doorway before, right? They've never had that door appear in their life until they met someone that tempted them or something. Something made the door appear, okay? Now let's talk about the standard when all of a sudden you have a spouse that there is a door, and that door is stealing your security. That door is terrifying when it opens up for your spouse and leads them into something that is jeopardizing their soul, jeopardizing your marriage, jeopardizing your family. jeopardizing everything that you hold dear, right? And now there's a door, an opening to the enemy to come through and steal from you. So I'm going to share what I did. When that doorway appeared in my spouse's life, I did everything I could to lock that door, bar that door, secure that door. You know, I had lots of long thoughts in my, thinking, what can I do to stop this? What can I do to prevent my husband going through this door? What can I do to prevent that other person from coming through? You know, I was like the gatekeeper, right? I wanted to do that. I wanted to lock the door. And, you know, sometimes we are successful, right? Sometimes the things that we set up, we lock it, and we can prevent things from happening. You know, how many times I would convince my husband to get his number changed or on his phone or, you know, just there's so many things that we try to do. But here's the thing. I was like tied to that door myself, because I would go and check to see, you know, if that door, if they had broken in, if they had talked through the door, if they had picked the lock, opened the door, went through it, locked it back up. You know, I would look for signs of break-ins. I would look for signs of communication. I was always tied to that door, even though I would look and say, okay, it's still locked, you know, but is it really locked? Did they figure out a way? Maybe they have another door. I don't know, but it drove me crazy. And I think some of you can understand this, how even though the door might be locked and you might get that momentarily feeling of peace that you've locked it, you've controlled this, you've stopped the affair, right? You've stopped it. You never have the peace, because guess what? The door is still there. It's still there. It's still a reminder, okay? It's still a suspicion. It's still there. And the other thing is, when you lock that door and your spouse wants to go through it, you know it. And there's a huge difference between you locking the door and your spouse locking the door, God locking the door, and then God removing the door. Our goal, God's goal, your spouse's goal, is for that door to disappear, for it to not be there anymore. Then you don't have to worry about, is the door broken into? Is your spouse secretly unlocking it? Is your spouse beating on the door, breaking the door down? Okay? That's the difference between us controlling things and doing things in our time and our way, and God going in and showing them what's behind that door. How that door is, you know, an open door to the enemy is going to ruin their life. Sometimes God will let them go through it. He does let them go through it. I've seen that in my own life with my own stubbornness, my own doors that I go through, and they're wide open, right? God's not blocking it. He's not stopping it. He's letting me go through it. He's letting me feel the effects of my choices. And he's waiting for me to come out, stand up to that door and say, I don't want you in my life anymore. I know what you are. I know what you're capable of. I know what you're doing to me. And I don't want this. That's how the doors disappear. Not because my husband walked over and locked it and standing and blocking it. Because I will find a way to go right through him and get to what I want. That's not the way. And it's certainly not the way when God stands in the way and says, no, I know you want what's behind me, but I'm not going to let you. Because I've seen that too. I've seen people say, you know what? I don't want to follow you, God, because I want what's behind you more. And I'm just going to be angry at you, shove you aside, be rebellious, and I'm going to go get what I want. And that's why people will step away from God at the same time they start their affair. Because they know God is standing there. Now, it's almost like he stands right there at the entrance to the door, and people see that, and they're like, no, if I choose to go through that door, then I have to turn my back on God, and I have to go past him. That's the guilt, the conviction, the choice. You turn a blind eye and you say, no, I can't have this doorway. I can't go into this sin. I can't enjoy what's in that room, in there, and still serve God. And that's why a lot of times we see in the Bible it says that sin is in the dark, because there's darkness. God doesn't go in that room, right? He's on the outside of the door. He's not going to enter into sin with you. But he's always there saying, come out of it. Come out of this bondage. But he will let you go in there. And it's not something that we can just barricade and stop our spouses from doing as much as we want to. You're going to get that momentary peace, right? And I'm telling you, the struggle is real to want to take matters in your own hands, to want to do things to stop them from sinning. And that's really rooted in our own fears, our own desires, our own lack of security. That's why we do this. We rush in and we stop it because we just want to be secure again. We want to have peace again. We don't want to be afraid. And this is where we're struggling, and we're not secure in our faith in God as much as we should be. It's where we're not focused on what God is capable of. And he can secure us while that door is wide open and our spouse is visiting it, and he's in there or she's in there, right? We can be resting in God's embrace, and we can have peace and security and trust God as our spouse goes through that. And our prayers and our hope and God's hope, right? We're not alone in this. He doesn't want our spouse in there. He does not want anyone trapped in addiction. He doesn't want anybody in sin. He wants them to be free. He wants that door to disappear. He wants us to resist the enemy when the knocking is there. He wants us to stand up and say, no, I see you for what you are, and I don't want you in my life. He wants us to come to him and say, Jesus, help us be free. That's what he wants. And he wants it between him and your spouse. He does not want us interfering and stopping. Okay? We do this for our children, right? We are there to be gatekeepers for our kids until they are old enough to make those decisions and fight that door of addiction and whatnot. And that is our role as a parent. We are not our spouse's parent. God is their parent. So I pray that this message touched you and helped you with a new perspective and understanding about doorways, temptation, hearts, desires, and God changing the desires of our hearts so that those doorways, those paths to temptation disappear, because our heart says, I want to please the Father. I don't want to do this for any other reason other than I don't want this in my life. That is the path to true freedom, right? Because I'm telling you, if they could do this because they didn't want to hurt us anymore, or they didn't want to hurt whatever, or they didn't want to, whatever, it would be done. But it's not enough. It's not enough. There has to be a larger purpose for them. Their heart has to want to please God. The fear of the Lord must be there for them to obtain the freedom where these doors disappear. God bless you. May he watch over you. May he strengthen you. May he build and increase your understanding. Much love to you. I am praying for you. I am standing with you. I am walking this journey with you. Bye-bye.